Karite Pontes, welcome back to Greek. Today we're going to be focusing on one verb for the entire lesson, and that verb is ειμί, which means to be or exist, so it is going to be used a lot. It's got a lot of different endings and accents that are going to seem unfamiliar compared to the verbs we've already learned, but it is a super important verb, and all you've got to do is really memorize some more endings, and then we can apply them. So we're going to be looking at active and middle voice for ειμί in the indicative, infinitive, and imperative, and the present, imperfect, and future tenses. And then right at the end, we'll be doing our 10th vocab set, and our teaser for next week will be a sentence with a demonstrative in it. And if you don't know what that is, that's okay. We'll briefly go into it once we get there, and next week's lesson will be entirely about demonstratives. So let's jump right in. First, the present active indicative of ειμί. These forms, like I said, are going to look totally unfamiliar, so don't freak out if you are like, why don't I recognize the endings or accent placements there? So first, the first person singular is ειμί, epsilon, iota, mu, iota, and then you have a smooth breathing mark because it's not ειμί, it's ειμί, and an acute on your final iota. And then in the second person singular, you have a, epsilon, iota, and this has, again, smooth breathing because it's not hey, it's a, and then a circumflex over the iota as well. Then in the third person singular, st, epsilon, sigma, tau, iota, and then sometimes, and by sometimes I mean if the next word begins with a vowel, then you'll include a nu on the end as well. So you have smooth breathing again because it's st, not hesti, and then an accent, an acute on your final iota. And then in the first person plural, esmen, epsilon, sigma, mu, epsilon, nu, smooth breathing, accent on the second epsilon. In the second person plural, este, epsilon, sigma, tau, epsilon, smooth breathing, and accent on the final epsilon. And then finally, third person plural, ac, epsilon, iota, sigma, iota, and when the next word begins with a vowel, just like the third person singular, you add a nu. And here we have smooth breathing again, ac, not hasty, and then an accent, an acute on that final iota. So, I know that these all look new and maybe a little bit scary, but let's just go through them and we'll practice them one more time, and then you can practice them on your own to really solidify them in your mind. So, first, ειμί, smooth breathing, acute on the iota, the final iota. Then second singular, a, epsilon, iota, smooth breathing, and circumflex over the iota. Third person singular, st, smooth breathing again, and then acute on the final iota. And then first plural, esmen, smooth breathing and acute on the final epsilon. Second plural, este, smooth breathing, acute on the final epsilon. And then third plural, ac, smooth breathing, acute on the final iota. And then remember with these two, you're just going to use the nu when your next word, the word following your form of ειμί, begins with a vowel. Just like you would in English. It's not a elephant, it's an elephant. I think I used that example earlier too. Okay, that's all for present active indicative. Now we're going to look at future middle indicative. These, again, unfortunately, are going to look totally new. Not anything like what we just did, but that's okay. We're just going to keep plugging along. So first person singular is eimí, epsilon, sigma, omicron, mu, alpha, iota. Eimí. And you have smooth breathing and an acute on that first epsilon. And then in the second person singular, you have esse, and that is either epsilon, sigma, eta, or epsilon, sigma, epsilon, iota. And now you have to factor in that eta has an iota subscript, because if you have epsilon iota, chances are that this eta is also going to have that kind of hidden secret iota attached to it. And we have smooth breathing again, because I said esse, and acute on your first epsilon in both forms. So really all that's changing is it an eta with iota subscript, or is it epsilon iota? Okay, now third person singular is esti, epsilon, sigma, tau, alpha, iota, and you have smooth breathing again and acute on the first epsilon. Then first person plural is esometha, so epsilon, sigma, omicron, mu, epsilon, theta, alpha. And you have smooth breathing, acute on your omicron. Esometha. I think that's such a fun form. Okay, second plural, eseste, epsilon, sigma, theta, epsilon. That was my absolute favorite. And you have smooth breathing again and an acute on your first epsilon, eseste. And then third person plural, esontai, which is epsilon, sigma, omicron, nu, tau, alpha, iota. And smooth breathing, and then an acute on that first epsilon. So now let's go through, say these forms. First person singular, eimí. Second singular, esse. Third singular, esti. First plural, esometha. Second plural, eseste. Third plural, esontai. Not too bad, but just all new. But I find that very exciting. And now we are on to imperfect active indicative, after which we'll go back through all three of these tenses / voices we've just learned and see how we would translate them into English and just get some more practice in with all these new forms. So first person singular, we have a, which is eta, and then you have smooth breathing and a circumflex. Or you can also have ein, eta, nu, smooth breathing again, circumflex. And then second singular, you have aestha, eta, sigma, theta, alpha, and you have smooth breathing and circumflex on that first eta. And then third singular, ein, just like the second form of the first person singular form. Ein. What I'm saying is this form matches this one. Just something to notice to help you with your memorization. And then first person plural, you have amen, not amen like in English, but eta, mu, epsilon, nu. And unsurprisingly, smooth breathing and circumflex on that first eta. Then second plural, ete, eta, tau, epsilon, or este, which is eta, sigma tau epsilon. Either one works. And again, smooth breathing, circumflex over the eta. Ete and este. And then in the third person plural, ason, which is eta sigma alpha nu, smooth breathing, circumflex over the eta. And that's it for imperfect. Let's go through one more time with these endings, and then we'll scroll all the way back up to present active and see how we will translate all of these forms we've learned so far. So first singular, a or ain, second singular, aestha, third singular, ain, first plural, amen, second plural, ate or aeste, and third plural, ason. And just a quick tip, I guess you could call it, how I learned these endings was by just remembering there's always going to be an eta out front with your smooth breathing and circumflex, and then I basically just learned them as like nu, sigma theta alpha, etc. I'm not sure if I recommend that, but it worked for me. You know, sometimes you just got to find a way when you have so many new endings to learn. So maybe that'll work for you. If not, just remember imperfect is the tense where you're going to have all these etas beginning your forms of eimí. So now let's go all the way back up to present active indicative and see how we'll translate these. So if you have done any Latin, you'll know the verb sum, which means to be, just like eimí. And so eimí in Greek is going to be translated just like sum would be in Latin. So starting with first person singular, we have eimí, I am, then you are, then esti or estin, he, she, or it is, and then first person plural, esmen, we are, second person plural, este, you all are, and then third person plural, esin, which is they are. And now on to future middle. Esomai, I will be. Did I say first plural? I don't even remember, but the point is what I just did was first singular. Now, second singular, esse, or essay, same thing, just with different spellings. Both mean you will be. Then estai, he, she, or it will be. First plural, esometha, we will be. Second plural, eseste, you all will be. Third plural, esontai, they will be. And now on to our last ones that we've learned so far. First singular, a or ain, that's I was. Then second singular, aestha, you were. Third singular, ain, he, she, or it was. First plural, amen, we were. Second plural, ate or aeste, you all were. And then third plural, ason, they were. Okay, those are our chunkiest endings that we have to learn. They're not even endings, they're full forms, chunkiest forms we have to learn. Now on to some shorter, simpler ones, I think. So, present active indicative is going to be eini, epsilon, iota, nu. Okay, hold on. Let me make this a little bit thicker for this space. Eini, epsilon, iota, nu, alpha, iota. And here we have smooth breathing, eini, not heini, and then a circumflex over that first iota. Eini. This is the present active infinitive, so this is just going to be to verb, and since I've already said ειμί means to be or exist. ειναι just means to be. Okay, now future middle indicative, infinitive, sorry. This is εσέσθαι. So epsilon, sigma, theta, alpha, iota. εσέσθαι. And you have smooth breathing and an acute on that first epsilon. εσέσθαι, not hesesthai, εσέσθαι. Okay, and now we are on to our final forms. Before we do that real quick, future middle infinitive is going to be translated as to be, going to be. So, I know that sounds a little weird, but I think it'll make more sense once it's written out in comparison to the present active infinitive. So let's just look at how this looks written out. So present active infinitive we've determined is to be, right? ειναι, to be. Future middle is to be plus going to be. So you're combining to be, the base of really any sort of infinitive, because to be verbing can be a way that you translate most, at least, of regular verbs infinitives. Here, in order to make this verb that already means to be future in an infinitive form, it's to be, going to be. I think breaking it down like this helps to decode it in a way because it sounds a little bit weird to just say it. So, εσέσθαι, to be, going to be. To be, going to be. Okay, and now we are on to our last forms we're going to learn, the present active imperatives. This should say active. That's my bad. Active. Okay. Present active imperative. So, just like with any other imperative that we learn, this is only going to exist in the second and third person, and we have forms in both the singular and plural. Okay, here we go. Second person singular is isthi. Iota, sigma, theta, iota. And we have smooth breathing, isthi, not histhi, and then an acute on that first iota. Then in the third person singular, esto, epsilon, sigma, tau, omega. And here we have smooth breathing again and an acute on that first epsilon. Then second person plural, este. Smooth breathing and an accent right on that first epsilon. And then third person plural, eston. With smooth breathing again and an acute on the first epsilon. So, to translate these, we're just going to say be for the second person singular. For third person singular, let him, her, or it be. And second person plural, be again, but to a plural group of people. And then third person plural, let them be. So let's go back and say these endings through one more time. Isthi, esto, este, eston. Okay? And now to practice, we're going to go through everything we just did one more time, just a little bit faster this time. So, starting with present active indicative, we have eimí. And I would recommend you just do this along on your own, or you can pause the video and try to do all the forms we just did on your own and then check them to the answers, I guess, here. Or you can do them live with me. Second person singular, a. Third person singular, esti. Or estin. And then acute right there. First person plural, esmen. Second person plural, este. And third person plural, ac. Or acine. And remember, these news are going to be added when the next word begins with a vowel. Okay, and let's go through quickly and translate these. Eimí, I am. A, you are. Esti, estin. He, she, or it is. Esmen, we all are. We are. Este, you all are. And ac or acine, they are. Okay, on to future middle indicative. First person singular, esomai. Second person singular, esse. Esse. With that iota subscript if you're doing the version with the eta, and then it could also be esse with epsilon iota. And we have smooth breathing and acutes on both those first epsilons. And then third person singular, esti. Smooth breathing and acute on the first epsilon. First person plural, esometha. Second person plural, esesthe. Third person plural, esontai. And now let's go back and translate these. Esomai, I will be. Esse, either one. You will be. Third singular, estai, he, she, or it will be. First plural, esometha, we will be. Second plural, esesthe, you all will be. And third person plural, esontai, they will be. And on to our imperfect active indicative. We have first person singular, a, or ein. Second person singular, aestha. Third person singular, ein. First person plural, esomet. Oh, sorry. I was going back to future middle. It's amen. Just minutes after I made the comment about how you could remember imperfect has all the etas beginning it. Oh, well. Okay, second person plural, ete. And then could also be este. And third person plural, ason. Okay, let's go through these and translate them. A or ein is I was. Eistha is you were. Ein, he, she, or it was. Amen, we were. Ete or eiste, you were, you all, you plural, however you like to say that. Ete or eiste, and then third plural is eison. And now our present active in imperative. Made the mistake again, but that's okay. This is active imperative. Second person singular, isti, with smooth breathing and an acute on that first iota. Third person singular, esto. Second person plural, este. And third person plural, eston. And now let's translate these. Isti, be. Esto, let him, her, or it be. Este, be, again, but to more than one person. And then eston, let them be. Okay, and now let's do our infinitives. Present active infinitive is eini. To be. And then future middle is essesthai. Essesthai, to be, going to be. And real quick before we go to our vocab for the week, I want to try to help you with memorizing all these new forms. Now, I know a lot of them seem unfamiliar, and that's because they are, but there are certain things that I think can help you to memorize them based on patterns from past verb forms that we've learned. So for example, this men ending here. We remember that a lot of past endings either have metha in the middle or men, amen, in the indicative, present active indicative, whatever you want to use for comparison. Finding similarities is one of the best ways to solidify your understanding of the forms and also to be able to compare forms between different tenses, voices, moods, etc. So, this men, the te, and also, honestly, even that removable nu on the end, that can help too with third person. And any sort of patterns like that you see, this metha ending, classic middle, the my, all those things, they can all add up to make a difference. That adding te on the end for second person plural, and in the imperatives, this te again on the end, and the tone, instead of on tone, now we just have tone. So there are definitely similarities. It's just that it's almost like they've been rearranged in a new way, and that can make it feel unfamiliar and unnatural, but if you practice and you make those connections, it will make it easier for you in the long run. Alright, that's all I've got to say about all these new endings. I went pretty light on the vocab this week because I think that the focus should definitely be on all the new forms that we've now learned. So, for verbs, all we have is eimí, esomai, to be or exist. And one of the coolest and also most powerful things about eimí is that when it is in its third person singular form, and it's followed by an accusative and an infinitive, it can be translated as it is possible to verb. So it is possible to blank, which I think is really cool, and you'll definitely see that in sentences as you translate Greek on your own. There are lots of examples in From Alpha to Omega with those types of sentences. It's just a cool thing to know and to be able to understand. So, now on to our nouns. Just a few this week. Arche, ace, he, means beginning, rule, or authority. So arche or arche, however you choose to pronounce that key. And then eirene, eirenes, he, means peace. I think that's such a nice word. And then logos, ha, means word, speech, or thought. Very common word. And then polemos, ha, means war. And now we're on to our adjectives. I put this adjective right after we learned the noun polemos because they're related. So polemios, on, takes the dative and means at war with. So at war with some noun in the dative. Or you can translate it as hostile to some noun in the dative. Or if this adjective appears in a form on its own, you can translate it as enemy, as a substantive. Now, that sense of the word enemy is slightly different than the meaning of enemy in this next adjective we're going to learn. So I'll explain that once we get there. So for now, on to our next adjective, echthros, or ekthros. Again, depending on your pronunciation with that key. Echthros takes a dative also and means hateful to or hostile to. So these are pretty similar. And just like polemios can mean enemy as a substantive noun. The slight difference between these two, there is a difference. The difference between these two is that polemios, when used as enemy, means enemy in terms of war, in a warlike context. Echthros means enemy in a more personal way, a personal enemy. This is why it means hateful to, not at war with. So there's different connotations to these adjectives. But I think that if you remember polemos as a noun means war, then it follows that polemios would mean related to war, something related to war. So at war with, hostile, or an enemy in war. Echthros is hateful to, hostile to, or an enemy in your personal life, if that makes sense. And that is all for vocab this week, so pretty light compared to some other lessons we've done. And now we are on to our teaser for the week. And the teaser this week is another sentence. As you can see, the sentences are starting to get more complicated, but that's just going to reinforce everything that we've been learning. And first thing I want you to notice is some new vocab that we just learned. Logos, echthros, and ein, also a form that we did today. And also this, the tais chorais, should seem pretty familiar. That's a noun and an article that we've already learned. We learned a long time ago, actually. And then this unfamiliar word, ekainos, that we will get to as we try to translate this. So, first, let's identify our subject of this sentence. Okay, so first things first, let's look at our verb. Our verb here, well, we can scan through. Not a verb, Question mark, I guess. We don't know. Not a verb, not a verb, not a verb. We just learned this new verb form, and that fits perfectly. So, let's identify ein as our verb. Okay, so ein. Let's think this through. Like I said earlier, when you see that beginning eta with smooth breathing and a circumflex over it to start a verb, you should think to yourself, oh, that's imperfect, active, indicative of eimí. So this is third person singular. He, she, or it was. We don't know what our subject is still though. So now we know that we're looking for a person or a thing. We're not talking about ourselves. We're not talking about directly to someone. So it's not first or second person. So now we go back to the beginning of the sentence and we say, okay, let's find something that's nominative. We can ignore ha because we know that's a definite article, and we get to logos. Oh, well, we just learned that that's a noun, and that form, that os in the masculine, is a nominative form. So now we can identify our subject of the sentence as logos. Ha, logos, once you include that definite article. And we learned logos means word, speech, or thought, even argument, reasoning, debate, anything like that. Let's do speech here. So, okay. So now we have the speech was. And so now we should be asking ourselves, well, where can this be going? We know that eimí is very likely going to be introducing some sort of predicate adjective, anything like that. So let's start looking for adjectives. We still don't know what this thing is, so let's ignore it. We see ekthros. Oh, we just learned that. Ekthros is an adjective that means hateful to or hostile to. So let's identify ekthros as the predicate that follows this ein here on the end. So the speech was hateful, and we know that ekthros means takes a dative. And so now we're thinking, okay, again, we're going to ignore this. And perfect, we see this dative form, tais korais. We know kore means woman or girl. So tais korais is going to be to the girls. So ekthros, hateful, tais korais, to the girls. Okay, so now we have no choice but to address this big question mark in the middle of our sentence. What is that? Well, this is a demonstrative, and we're going to be learning about a bunch of demonstratives next week, and that is probably my favorite lesson. I just think they're so fun, and I hope you'll find that too. So ekainos is one of those, and if you take Latin, a parallel would be ille, illa, illud. It means that or those, that in the singular, those in the plural. And there are some other ones like hade, heyde, tade, which means this or these, just like hic, haec, hoc in Latin. And there's one more that's kind of a hybrid of the two. So there's going to be a lot of new forms next week, but like I said, they're so fun. And this is just one of them to get you hooked, interested in what's to come. So ekainos, like I said, means that or those. And if you're still shaky on what this whole demonstrative thing means, I promise I will go pretty deeply into it next week, right from the start. So even if you haven't done any Latin, then this will make a lot more sense to next week. But for now, all you need to know is that we're going to translate ekainos as that or those, depending on whether it's singular or plural. Now, ekainos has this os ending, which looks an awful lot like the os in logos and the os in ekthros. That's for a reason. This is the masculine singular nominative ending. So, like I said, it's singular, which means that we're going to translate ekainos here as that. And I'm going to go ahead and move this little parenthesis I have here to the other side of ekainos, so it's included with our subject. Because when we translate, we're going to say that logos, ekainos logos, that speech, and go from there. So now that we have this all mapped out, let's put it all together and finish up. So, ha logos ekainos, that speech, ein was, ekthros hateful, to, dative, tais chorais the girls. So, that speech was hateful to the girls. I hope I've gotten you interested, curious, confused even, and more than anything excited to find out about demonstratives next week. Until then, keep practicing with all these new forms of eimí. I believe in you. I know that you'll get them. I know that they might seem intimidating, but you've got it. You can always ask me questions. Email me at president@fjcl.org. I'd be happy to talk to you, to help you any way I can, and I will see you next week.